tonight is the Rangers Journal night.
Hello and welcome to the Rangers Journal. It's Monday the 7th of October, I believe. We're here tonight to go over the scraps of what was a interesting game, to say the least, yesterday at the stadium against St Johnstone. I've got a great panel with me this evening. I'll first of all turn to you, Andrew. How are you doing this evening, mate?
I'm not bad, Billy. I'm not bad. Yourself?
You know what? I come in for work for these things, so you get a wee bit of a buzz. When you normally I just want to go and lie on the couch, but when you're coming on the pod, it's like, get up for it. Talk about the Rangers. Ryan, how are you feeling, mate?
I'm good as well, but actually, two words in my mouth there. It gives you something to look forward to. See you coming in for work, you see all your lovely faces.
It used to be I would come in and get changed for 5s or 7s, but where I live now, I don't know anybody to play with. William, how are you? My namesake, are you all right?
I'm all good, mate. I just watching rubbish on television since it's Monday night and there's nothing else to do.
Well, except to come on and talk about the Rangers.
Well, of course, but we do that every day of the week, don't we? So.
Oh. I've listened to a few other pods today at work, and Andrew, there's been quite a few complaints on a few different platforms or different podcasts about the time of the match. Selfishly, I actually quite enjoyed it being an 8 o'clock, maybe a wee bit later than I'd like. But what was your feelings on the start time of the match? Obviously, not something the club could have controlled.
Yeah, no, it's probably a few factors coming into that. It was a weird one because I was just waiting all day. I had a day off yesterday, a rare one, so I was having a bit of a lazy day in the house, and you're literally just going, oh yeah, game's on in a few hours, I was in early for work this morning as well, so it was like pretty much as soon as the game finished, I went to my bed. Luckily, I didn't go to my bed raging, but it is a very weird one, 8 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday night. Now, obviously, it's not absolutely freezing cold at the minute, but if you can imagine that was like a Sunday night in January, I think the attendance would have been lower. Sadly, it's just one of these things. They obviously had the great Scottish run in the city, and of course, when things tend to be on Premier Sports, I think they do tend to go for some weird kickoff times as well. So I think there's a few factors coming to that.
Well, I'll not dwell on it, Ryan. The time was the time. It suited not that many people at the stadium. The other kind of annoying thing as well, that all the public transport seemed to be off. So that's obviously going to affect the crowd there as well. But Ryan, I'll come to you on your thoughts before the game. What was your expectations going into this one? Were you hoping to blow St Johnstone away, or were you hoping for or expecting what we got?
I would have liked to have seen us maybe get 3 or 4 at home. I'd like to see these kind of 1-0s and 2-0s kind of grow into 3 and 4 nothings. But I think that'll come. The most important thing is getting the results. 5 wins out of 7, so I'm happy enough for that. But I thought goals wise, I think we should be scoring more now. But I think it's coming to that point in the season now where we should be finding a rhythm. We should be beating the likes of St Johnstone 3s and 4s.
William, we do create enough, I feel, but quite early on in the match, an absolute perfect ball for Cyril Dessers to get a header on, and he manages to hit it over the bar. Are we doing enough, do you think, in these games to put 3 or 4 past these teams?
I think we always create enough chances. I mean, even just going back to the Leon game, it wasn't for like a lack of chances, in the actual game itself. And I think we've been saying it now for probably about 18 months or so. We need to be more clinical in front of a goal. When the opportunities come, especially in the games that are obviously bigger in terms of importance, we really need to start taking them. I think most people expected St Johnstone to play the way they did. They were never going to open up. They were never going to do anything to help us score, clearly. It's up to us to try and find those gaps, to play in those pockets of space, to try and create as many chances as we can. But yeah, there's no doubt we need to be more clinical when we get into those situations. I sort of felt in the first half as well, maybe we were unlucky not to get a penalty. I think, again, Dessers is getting the shirt torn off his back, yet for some reason, VAR doesn't decide to look at it and give a penalty for that. I was actually quite stunned from where I was in the enclosure, because we had a great view of it, but there's not much you can do when they don't look back in these things and make that decision.
It's funny how you can see it from the stands, but a referee standing, 10, 15 yards away from it, didn't see it. I was going to just pull up the starting lineup just to kind of get us going, Andrew, and we'll we'll kind of go from there. So Jack Butland in goals, obviously. I'm now struggling to find this starting lineup, but Tavernier, Proper, Suter, and Jeffrey. Midfield of Raskin, Diomande, and somebody help me out.
You had Cherny out on the right, Bajrami
Yep.
in the middle, and finally in that number 10 role, Ross McCausland out on the left, weirdly, which felt like a bit of a strange one, but I can probably see what he was trying to do there. And of course, Dessers up top, I think, wasn't it?
Thank you, Andrew. Well, I'll stay with you. That's what I wanted to actually focus on was McCausland playing out on the left. You said there that you thought he knew what he was going for. I felt it was a bad decision, not all in. So what was your how could you understand? What did you understand about putting him out there?
I think you kind of look at this with a few teams in modern football switching wingers over, so their predominant foot's on the other side, so they can kind of cut in a bit easier. I think that's what he was probably looking at, and I guess at a home game against St Johnstone's probably the one you can try that with. But granted, you're probably best trying it when you're 3 or 4-0 up, maybe, like he did with Tav later on in the game where he kind of moved him up one. It didn't work for Ross. Ross kind of had a bit of a slow start to the season. Then he's really come into it now, and it didn't really work out for him there out on the left. I think we only had 2 changes in that side from the one that faced Leon. Obviously, we just rested a kind of couple of players, but yeah, I think that was his way of kind of accommodating Bajrami in behind Dessers with McCausland out there. But he didn't do a lot wrong, but he just didn't do a lot. Really per se, he went kind of unnoticed for a large part of the game.
Ryan, the other kind of one that stood out to me was Raskin starting. Now he started the very first friendly, I believe, the one he got injured in, but it certainly felt like a little bit of a slap in the face that the name goes that he starts over Connor Barron. Sorry, was it to do with it? Do you think maybe the player's confidence from the mistake he made in the Leon game, or do you think it just was rotation?
Probably rotation. I think Connor Barron's been great for Rangers. I think at the level he was playing at on Thursday was maybe an eye opener for himself and maybe some of us as well. But I thought Raskin had not a great game, but I thought he looked good. I thought he looked good, a bit like him at his old self. He's got a good rhythm. And I'd like to see him pushing for a starting place now, because it seems like Barron and Diamandi have kind of got that to themselves at the moment. So it'd be nice to see somebody else trying to come in there and fight for a place.
William, what was your thoughts on the midfield starting lineup?
Yeah, I thought we would have seen a little bit more change within the team in general, to be honest. Maybe the manager had looked at that Hibs game and maybe felt maybe there was too much change and he maybe didn't want to do that again. But I thought Nico had a really good game. It's good to see him back at that level again, because we've obviously missed him now for a reasonably decent period of time. And I think it's important that we do give some players a break. I mean, Barron's basically played every game. I think Diamandi's been carrying a wee knock, but he's been playing through it. So I think you saw that at half time. I think he seemed to kind of clutch the back of his hamstring not long before half time. So maybe that was obviously one of the reasons we saw Connor coming on at half time. But I'm not against squad rotation, especially, when you're playing as many midweeks as we do. They need to have that. And it's obviously more good news. It sounds like that there's, a couple more players close to returning, because I think it is important to have every player fit as much as possible, because it gives us an opportunity to look at the team and give players a rest, because I think there's some players that have played more than they should have done so far this season.
If I stay with you, William, the other not surprise inclusion, because he's played most of the games, but Václav Cherny kept his place despite that awful Van Vossen-esque miss in the Leon game as well. Do you think the manager was just kind of showing him that, look, I back you, I believe in your talents, or is it maybe also we've not got another, well, maybe Ross McCausland, there's not a lot of options?
No, I would like to think it was the first part of that. I think when a player misses an opportunity like that, I think the best thing the manager can do is maybe have a wee word with him and just say, look, I think you're a good player. I think you can make the difference. Give him a wee bit of confidence. And, I think it's been difficult for Cherny. He's had good moments. He's had bad moments. I think the crowd have been frustrated maybe with some of his play at times. But I mean, the quality of that first goal last night was brilliant. A lovely bit of skill to get by the St Johnstone player, and then the finish is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, again, because of where I am in the enclosure, you get a great view of that particular goal, and I think it's just finding consistency for one or two players in the team at the moment. And when you look at Czerny's stats, I mean, I'm not a huge stats guy, right? I've always kind of said that, but when you look at these numbers that he had in the Netherlands, that league is probably quite similar to the Scottish League in terms of you'd maybe get like kind of 3 or 4 teams that are stronger than most others, and you're looking for the numbers to be strong. So maybe the fact that Czerny's only get the 3 goals so far is maybe a little bit disappointing, given what he did in the Netherlands. But I do think he's a good player, and hopefully now he can get a wee kick on now, and he does well for his country when he's away, and he comes back and he's ready to go for us again, because clearly we just jump back into game after game as soon as the international break's over.
Andrew, let's talk about the first half in particular. I thought we started okay, but up until the goal, it was the same game we played the week before with Hibs, 2 banks of 4, and not a lot really coming off. But you give me your summary of how you felt the first half went.
When I was watching it, it did feel... I don't want to use the word turgid, because we've had that many a time under Rangers. We've seen many turgid displays from us, especially after a European game. Not so much under Gerrard. We seem to kind of motor on after European games, which is something we never really saw. But if you go back, maybe under the days of McLeish and Walter, we would struggle. Looking back on some of the stuff today, I don't think we were that bad. I think the main thing that was lacking was actual, not just chance creation, because we were trying to create chances. It was just any attempt at finishing, really. That header that you were speaking about from Dessers. Now, I'll be honest, the way that the ball kind of comes in, it is dipping, so it is a harder one. You kind of got to get over it and then kind of got to direct it. If the ball's just coming in, you've just got to stick your head on it and it's in. It's a bit of a different kind of ball, that one. So, I'll be honest, I'll let Dessers off for that one. But, there wasn't really many other great chances, bar that. There was a couple of handful of things. I thought Raskin actually did play a very decent kind of defensive game, so to speak. There was a couple of times he did mop up in the opposition area. Now, don't get me wrong, St Johnstone didn't really threaten too much in that first half, but when you look at their side, Kim Pioka is one of their kind of big, strong athletic players, and he'd be the kind of the troublemaker, so to speak. But looking at even Czerny, for example, his goal, he took that well. The fact that he managed to finish that and nutmeg Sprangler and then just put it into the bottom corner when he had 2 easier chances in the last couple of European games. Massive credit to him for that. And of course, there was obviously some chat after the game, and he kind of went into things going on in his private life and stuff, which was a bit eye-opening. But he is human and he is adapting to life in Scotland. I don't think we were terrible in that first half at all. I just think we were just lacking. I think it was becoming a bit apparent that when Dessers is not in a bit of form, we do struggle to really get going on the goal front. So luckily Czerny did step up.
Ryan, I'll come to you, but I want you to have a wee look at over the slide that Doug has made up for us. The momentum thing for me, Ryan, is quite telling. It's pretty much all us, bar a couple of wee spikes in the second half. Is that how it felt watching?
Yeah, I definitely felt we were in control of the game. I didn't feel any danger from St Johnstone, especially in the first half. I think we grew into the game as the game kind of went on. Obviously Dessers misses his chance. I don't think it's as bad as people are making it. I think he was caught under it. A couple of free kicks opportunities as well. But with Czerny, I think the big thing for Czerny is he's trying to win over the fans as well. And I thought I'd double the yesterday. Really done well for him. I thought McCausland looked lively as well. I know he didn't do much either, but I did think he looked a little lively. Got that boy onto a booking as well, I'm sure. But I felt in control of the game totally. I felt as if we were having all the ball, all the chances. Maybe not creating as many chances or going as fast as I'd like us to in the final third. I think we could be a bit more aggressive going forward in our play. But yeah, it looks how it felt, I think.
Well, I think that's a good point, but Ryan, there, are we aggressive enough? Full stop.
Yeah, that's a good question, to be fair. I think at times you could definitely say no. I'm sort of like old school. I'm like a great believer in, when you get two, you want the third. When you get the third, you want to get the fourth. I feel at times that this season we've not done that. And that's a bit of a frustration for me, because I do think when you're ahead in games, it's important as much as anything else to rack up the goals. It can be a confidence thing, whether that's for the strikers, the midfield players, the wingers scoring goals. So I do feel lately in particular, maybe we haven't been as clinical as we could be. I guess the one thing from last night is we're still creating enough chances to score goals. It's just that we're obviously not taking them. I guess what the biggest sort of positive last night yet again is, it's another clean sheet, which is obviously important for us because we need to get as many of those as possible against teams like St Johnstone, and it's important to keep winning. And in the overall scheme of things, we just need to keep winning games in the league. We've obviously got a kind of tougher schedule coming up in the next month or so, so that'll maybe give us more of a gauge. But I do think we're more solid defensively in the league, and if we could just score a few more goals, it would maybe be a bit more comfortable going into the last 10 or 15 minutes of some games, rather than thinking, I hope we don't lose a goal here, because we might not be capable of winning the game.
Ryan, can I come back to you in the second half? A couple of changes. Obviously, we bring Connor Barron on for Diamande, and Hadji comes on unexpectedly. For me, anyway, to come on so soon.
Mm-hmm.
Are you happy about his inclusion again so quickly?
Oh yeah, Hadji, definitely. I think it's been a waste him playing for the B team, for considering the kind of squad situation we've had. The standard of the squad hasn't been great. I think the number 10 position was a real problem position until Lawrence has stepped up in the last couple of weeks. So I've been a big advocate to get Hadji back in the team. I think he's a match winner. I was disappointed for him. Obviously, I think he was trying a little bit too hard and got himself caught up in a silly tackle. But yeah, definitely, I was happy to see him come into the team. And hopefully the suspension not too long, we'll get him right back in again, because I think he's a good talent.
Yeah, and Andrew, the match is over as a contest, or at least it should have been, when Hadji makes a really hard direct pass to Czerny, who finishes with, I believe, was it his right foot he finished that with?
I think it would have been, yeah. Or
yeah,
maybe his left, possibly. I don't know.
Are we missing that kind of direct ball straight to the feet? I remember watching an interview when Gerrard talked about how he would do that when new players, give them really strong, difficult balls to control and see how they handled it. But Hadji did well to get the ball through to him. And are we missing that? Or have we been missing that?
Well, we've started to see that from Bajrami, to be fair. Now, not to really hark on about the Lyon game, but, there was several times he was playing, several defence splitting passes that were fantastic, but nobody in the team was really properly anticipating them. So I don't know if it is sometimes a capability issue with who we've got up top, or if it's just about, maybe people just kind of adapting to players' games. Now, Hadji's ball was fantastic. It really was. He's been doing similar stuff with the B team. When he was knuckling down there. Hadji's a bit of a weird one for me, because when you look at how how long he's been here at the club, how many managers have been through, he's never really always seemed favoured. He does end up getting dropped a lot, so that's something. Obviously, he's back into the side, and he had a fairly okay game in that kind of 25 minutes that he was on for, but that pass was fantastic. If Bajrami done that, we wouldn't be surprised. We're going to have to rotate our squads, for certain games. So it'd be good to see Hadji in that side. Obviously, we'll be missing for the next few. But yeah, we are. There is that thing where I remember I spoke, to go off on a little bit of a tangent. I spoke with Forrester. Harry Forrester, sorry, I couldn't think of the name there. My mind went blank.
I get that back quite often.
Do you know what? Do you know what? I nearly said James Forrester. That would have been embarrassing. But yeah, no, Harry Forrester. And he was talking about under under Mark Warburton. Mark came and saw him one day and said that, oh, your pass completion's like in the 80% mark. And he was like, oh, that's brilliant. And he went, no, it's not. We want to see you with that less, because we want to see you make mistakes, because you're trying balls that aren't simple. And that is what it's about. We a lot of the time, the Rangers' problem is simple balls too much. When Clement came in, he spoke about, he didn't want to see any more, I won't swear, but he didn't want to see any more lateral passes, because that's something we were doing too often. We play safe too often. We do need to be more of an attacking side. That's where McCausland I do like at times, because there was an Old Firm game last season where he took on players. He did keep losing the ball, but he was willing to take them on. And some nice direct balls, direct play is where we need to be at, rather than, kind of getting to the byline and punting balls in. And I think we are trying to be organised under Clement. The only fear that I have is kind of in that final third, we might not have just at the minute the full capable players to receive them balls, possibly at the minute.
William, the other player that was mentioned in the last couple of comments with Ryan and Andrews, by Rami, he played in the number 10, or started in number 10. It's not fair to judge him on one game, but he definitely was less involved, I feel, than the previous games where he was playing out on the wing. What did you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think in the first half he probably didn't get on the ball as much as he would have liked. But I mean, in particular, that first half, like Diamande seemed to spend a lot of time very high up the pitch. So you wonder if maybe they've kind of got in each other's way, or they've took each other's spaces at times. But yeah, he does seem to find more space when he's kind of playing off that left-hand side. Whether that's just a comfortable thing for him out there. But I don't think we can say that we lack creativity in that second half. When you look at the players we actually had on the pitch, there was a lot of creativity on the pitch. I mean, even when James Tavernier moved into that kind of wide right position, he put a couple of absolutely brilliant crosses into the box, and nobody's there to attack it. So yet again, I think we get ourselves into so many good positions up until the final third of the pitch, but it's just that last bit that's lacking again. And I can understand the frustration of some fans, because I think the one thing we need to do more is get more players in the box. It shouldn't always be down to Dessers. It's important that maybe Barami gets in there more. It's important that Diamande gets himself into the box. And obviously whoever's playing in the wide positions needs to try and get in. Because I do feel at times we are a bit kind of reliant on what, our main striker does. I would like to see more goals from the middle of the pitch, because I think we've got enough energy in there to score goals. And I'm sure the manager would like to see that as well, because I would imagine on the touchline he must get really frustrated with some of the positions we find ourselves in without actually putting the ball in the back of the net.
Ryan, quite a lot of fans over the years, not necessarily myself, I think he has worked better from deep, have wanted to see Tav play on the right wing. So we did get to see that with Castanwero coming on. And William said that he put in a couple of good crosses. How did you feel he did in that position, playing a bit further up?
Yeah, right away, whipped the ball right across the face. It was a tap in for somebody.
Nobody there though.
Right, usual. I think it might be. I'd never thought it was I wasn't a big advocate for him to go out to right midfield, but I think maybe now as he's getting a bit older, maybe it might suit him. So maybe doesn't need to do so much going back the way, as it seems as if his legs really aren't there going back the way anymore. It was always a problem for him to start through his Rangers career. Never mind now he's a bit slower, but I wouldn't see why not. He's got a great delivery. Technically, he can score goals as well, so he could be. I think he could be a threat up there. I wouldn't be totally against it now. I think I'd maybe like to see, because we've got good players wanting to play in that right back position as well. He's got good competition now because I can't say his name now, but and Sterling as well. Do you know what I mean? So we've got good options there. It's not as if we're sitting there with Lee Hodgson or anything anymore. Do you know what I mean? We've got decent options. So I wouldn't mind seeing him getting pressed up the park as well. Going forward, I wouldn't mind to see it.
Andrew, the manager did comment after the game that it's not maybe something that's going to be a regular feature, but it was more kind of born out of necessity yesterday. I actually quite liked it. I would be, maybe not a starting position, but I maybe wouldn't be against it. If you're going to keep playing Tav in the team, then maybe have not as much defensive duties might be good for him? What do you think?
Obviously, the TAV debate could be a can of worms, and I can understand it. I can understand the reasons for, the reasons against. You look at what Tav's given us over the years, and you can't deny that he's given us a lot in an attacking and goal scoring sense. And you can't deny that. People can try, but they can't. Now, he's definitely lost a yard or two. He started the season slow. He had obviously an injury in pre-season. It looks like he's just starting to get up to speed now, because we were seeing a lot less crossing from him and stuff. One of the guys on the pod a few weeks ago did post some stats, and actually wasn't too far off what he was doing last season, I think. Seeing him in more of an attacking sense where he's not having to get back and cover as much ground, definitely something I'd like to see a little bit more. But I think, we do have to start planning for the future. And I think Casemiro is he's looked fantastic in the short kind of spurts that we've seen him in. And, you do have that argument for that he kind of just has to start, I think, at right back. Now, I'm not necessarily saying drop Tav, but, there is, I think Tav could play one up. Now, I know it was tried before under Wolverton. It has been tried every now and then. It never always necessarily fully worked. But if Tav gets back up to speed and can score goals again, then you still would want him on the park. How many players go over to Parkhead when the chips are down and score goals? I know he doesn't always do it. We don't always win there. But he's one of the few players that has over the past few seasons. He's somebody that has scored in big games, especially when you look at the tactics under Gio when he was pressed higher up, ghosting in at the back post. How many times in Europe would he score them goals right at the back post? Absolutely fantastic. And if he can recapture that, then midfield's probably the place for him. But, there is a question, can he reach that again? Because, there has been a regression. So it is definitely a question. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer at the minute.
Ryan, I just want you to know that was a definite shots fired by Andrew there, pronouncing Casemiro's name. We can also refer we can also refer to him as Big Casa, as we've been doing some other pods as well. Let's move on a little bit to a couple of players we want to kind of highlight. And my apologies, guys. I don't know if Ryan, yourself, I don't know if you can see when I put the thing up on the screen, depending on what device you're using. But I want to discuss Yanis Hadji, because what a half of two halves really for him. So William, I think a couple have already said that we were quite happy to see him coming on. How did you think he affected the game? His heat map's on the screen if you can see it.
Yeah, look, I thought he did okay. I've been lucky enough to watch Yanis playing quite a few of the B team games when he was down there. And the one thing I will say about Yanis is his attitude always seemed very good. He always seemed like he was somebody that was always talking to the younger players. He obviously has his individual moments of brilliance as well. And, at that level, Yanis should be standing out. I was glad that they finally came to some type of agreement over what the problem was behind the scenes. But there's no doubt that Yanis can be a really good option for us. And you can never have enough players with creativity. And I thought in the second half, Yanis got himself into 2 or 3 really good positions. He was probably slightly unlucky, maybe not to even get an assist in the second half. But I think just for everybody concerned, it's good to have him back. Because, I'm not saying it's wrong what was going on, because obviously there's obviously a lot more to these things of what maybe we see on social media and elsewhere. But to have a player with Yanis' ability playing in the B team, that's not really benefiting anybody, and especially the football club, because if we do want to move him on at some point, it's far better to have people watching him playing for the first team, whereas nobody's going to get to see him play for the B team.
Ryan, let's talk about the tackle then. I'm not going to say what I think. What do you think about the whole kind of why did he make the tackle? Think it's deliberate? Tell us your thoughts on it.
It's a rush up with the head. I think he's waited a long time to get back out in the park for Rangers. Maybe just adrenaline, overexcitement. I don't think it's malicious or any attempt to hurt a player. I think he's just flicked a leg out. It looks a lot. It didn't look a lot live, but obviously when you look back at the cameras and you carry all the 600 angles, do you know what I mean? You'll be able to see if it'll eventually look as bad as they want to make it look. But I was gutted for him, to be honest. But he's been through worse. he's been through the injuries and took him over a year to play for Rangers and stuff. So a couple of games won't hurt him. He'll dust the shell off and come back in. But I thought his stats for Rangers have always been good, despite maybe his performance has not always been great. So I'm glad to see him back, and hopefully the manager just sees that as a silly mistake.
Andrew, give me your opinion of it as well, and I'll come back to you on another question afterwards.
Well, when I was watching it at first in real time, I think just because of the angle, it didn't look too bad. It just looked like he'd stuck a leg in. And you could hear the commentators though were going, "Oh wow, no, that's not a good one. He's probably going to go off here." And I thought, well, what are they saying? But then when you see it from the other side, you go, "Oh yeah, the studs are clearly on the leg." Again, like Ryan said there, it's not malicious. You can see it's not malicious. I don't think Giannis is that type of player. I don't think we've ever seen that from him. He's just, he's trying to get back into the first team. He's trying to bust a gut. He's the type of player he does. He's kind of dedicated. It was silly. It was in midfield. It wasn't exactly, on some unstoppable attack or anything. But you know what? He can learn from it. Like Ryan said, he's only going to be out, for a couple of games, hopefully. And it's just a weird one because Hadji, he's always been in and out the Rangers team. You see the odd little bit of brilliance from him. We all remember Braga. But we also, there have been games, since then where, he's really struggled in games, not just him, the whole kind of team. So it'll be interesting to see how he treats this kind of second chance, so to speak, and, see what happens.
What I was going to come back to you on was the frustration that, well, I feel at least that he's going away in international duty. I'm expecting it only to be a 2-match ban. But we could be looking at not seeing him play another game for another month. And when we just got him back, it's just really frustrating for me.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a sad one. I don't know if the club are going to appeal it. I hope they don't, because it is quite an open and shut thing. And if you try and appeal it, you can get ones added on. So hopefully we just do the right thing and just go. You know what? It was one of those. You saw Clement when he was coming off. You give him a little, kind of like pat. It just happens. He's been a footballer himself. Sometimes you just get those crazy moments where you stick a leg in and you shouldn't. It is a shame that you were not going to see him for a few weeks, but you know what? When you saw him at the Euros, you think, there is a player there. There is a player, but can we rejig that and make that work in this Rangers side?
Yeah. Well, fair enough. We've covered Hadji. We'll move on to the next player I wanted to look at, and that was Raskin, William. I felt the second half when Barron was with him was a bit more balanced. I liked it a bit better. Again, you mentioned that Diamandi might have been carrying a knock, but how did you feel Raskin, not just yesterday's game, but how do you feel his season has been so far?
Yeah, look, he's obviously missed quite a bit of football because of that injury in pre-season. It has to say, the tackle in pre-season was a really poor one on him. Mm-hmm. And it probably could have been worse, actually, when you look at it. So it's good to have him back, especially with the away European games, in my opinion, because I think you might see all three of them playing, Barron, Raskin and Diamandi. The one thing that Nico always does is he gets about the pitch really well. He makes a lot of really good decisions in the middle of the park as well, in terms of, when he needs to stay on his feet, when he'll go to ground. He seems to read the play quite well. And we forget he is actually still quite young, Nico. For all we've had him for whatever that is, nearly 2 years now, he actually is still quite young, and he's one of those guys. I think he needs a certain type of player next to him, and I think potentially the way that we set up at times, him and Diamandi would be a good partnership at home. So it allows him to maybe be that little bit deeper, and it allows Dio to go. Whereas in the European games, if we do go with all three of them, I think that means that Barron and Raskin could both sit. And I think that's where he's at his best, because he's good at breaking up the play. His shooting, I think it's fair to say, is not great. The last couple of games where he's shot, I think he's nearly hit like the top tier of the stand a couple of times. But that's not what he's in the team for. But, in all honesty, it's just good to have him back. And it's good to have another option in the middle of the pitch, especially somebody who has that quality like Nico has.
Ryan, what's your general... William said he's been nearly 2 years he's been here. It's fair to say he's had good performances and not so good performances, but where are you at with him as a player? Do you think he's someone we should be keeping going forward?
Aye, definitely. He was tipped for big things at the start, wasn't he? They came on to the game really early, along with Cantwell, when they came in with Michael Beale. So as I think Mitch said in the comments there, he's not even 20 to 23 yet, so he's a young boy really, isn't he? He's had his own problems, been out of the team for a while, but I would really like to see him come in there and push for a place. He's a quality player, and somebody I think under Clement can develop into a good player for Rangers and possibly good selling value as well, which I think is massive for the club at the moment, trying to get a good trading model and trying to get these players moved on at the right time. So I've been impressed with Barron and Diamande, but as I said earlier, I think somebody needs to come in there and kind of push them now as well. And I'd like to see preferably Raskin and Barron together in the middle of the park, but yeah, I'd like to see him come back in there.
Andrew, what do you feel? I mean, he seemed to switch between the 6 and the 8. I don't know if I know what his best position is. I think maybe his final ball could be a bit better, so maybe the 8's not the best. But give me your thoughts on where you think his best position is for the team.
Well, when he came in, I always thought he could be the next number 6. We've never really had a proper nailed on number 6 since Barry Ferguson, really, have we? You know, he has the ability to hold up the ball and play it well. We saw, like Ryan said, early on, he looked quite good when he was brought in with Cantwell, but obviously injuries really pushed him back quite a bit, and he really did struggle to get into the side. I think now we're starting to see finally what he can do for us, which is good because you know, he was really highly tipped when he was playing out in Belgium. I still hold out hope that he could be kind of in that number 6 role more than the number 8. I think that's something we could really do with. But, you know, you look at yesterday's performance, and personally, I think at the minute, probably Barron, you know, where he was just suits that at the minute, because, you know, Barron's been in the team for most of the season, and he's just, you know, he's kind of gone a little bit unnoticed because he's put in like a very good shift most games. Now, Raskin, the good thing is there's a challenge for the place now. So, and we're starting to see that across the team, that people are kind of vying for starting positions. I think Raskin does have something to offer. I think it's probably more in a kind of number 6 role. I'm not saying he can't do the number 8. I just think that'd be kind of more suited to his skill set, I think. And hopefully, you know, because I remember even I looked at thinking that, God, he could be, you know, based on the YouTube videos I've seen before, I thought, God, he could be a future Rangers captain, you know, but looking at the kind of way he was. But I think I was getting caught up a wee bit in the old Barry Ferguson style videos as well. But yeah, he does have a future, and I think it's a bright one. But you know, I still think we haven't quite still got our nailed on starting 11, I think. Even though we kind of don't change the team up too much, I still think that now that players are all coming back, I still think there's still some tweaking to do. So, you know, he's putting in these performances. Yeah, it wasn't an incredible performance, but, you know, I think he's got it in his locker, and I think it will come.
William, Ryan mentioned Barron maybe needing a more experienced player, and with him, I tend to agree at this point in his career. But what's your kind of thinking on that?
Well, when you look at Lundstrom, he basically played every game. He was obviously, you know, sort of vastly experienced in that role. And we've went from that to having basically 3 young players in their early 20s in the middle of the pitch. So that is quite a big change for us. We've obviously lost one of our leaders at the back in Goldson, who was obviously there for a long time. Even Barisic, you know, I mean, he was an experienced international footballer, and now we've got Jefty, who's obviously just in his early 20s. And I think that's the one thing we need to accept. There's going to be mistakes made. There is still some vulnerabilities in the team, which is to be expected, because we were never going to change everything in one transfer window. But the good thing for me is you can see improvement in some players. I mean, I think I've said it on like the pod previously. I think that Barron looks like he's a better player than what I thought he was. I think everybody can see the quality that Diamande brings to the team. I think he's an exceptionally talented midfield player, and I think Rangers will make a lot of money on Diamande when he does eventually leave. And I think it's important that we do continue to look to bring in players and develop them. but I also think it's key to add one or two experienced heads, especially if you're not spending too much money on them. You know, possibly in the Bosman market is where you maybe bring in one or two of those players maybe next summer, and that just adds a little bit more spine to the team. Because I know there was a little bit of criticism on the proper deal, saying, well, why are we letting Goldson go and we're bringing in somebody that's basically the same age? But if we hadn't brought in proper, we were really lacking that. Because let's be honest about it, somebody like Balogun just doesn't play enough football. You know, he misses too many games, so we needed somebody to come in with that experience, and that's what proper brings. Out with that, you're probably just looking at James Tavernier and Jack Butland, because the rest of the team in general is quite young, and there's obviously that sort of lack of experience in Scottish football as well. So I do think we could do with one or two experienced heads, but I don't think, well, I don't expect us to spend much money on those type of players now. I think they will come in through, you know, the Bosman market, because it would just be the wages that you'd be paying.
Andrew, we'll move on from Raskin and touch on the last player I wanted to kind of focus on. That's Václav Černý. It's fair to say it was a fairly moving press conference after the game when he was asked about, you know, he scored a couple of goals, but he was saying, like, you know, he could have scored double that. It's not, for me, he's not had the impressive start that I was hoping for him. He's certainly shown bits of skill. For me, he's too one-footed, and if I was the manager, I'd be getting to do training, only ever be able to use his right foot for the session. But I'm sure that if that was as simple as that, the things like that would have been done. But what's your kind of viewpoint on how Černý started the season and how he's doing at the moment?
He started initially quite brightly in that first couple of games, and he's kind of dropped out a bit. I think he got figured out, like you say. He's a little bit one-dimensional, you know, with the 1 foot, and I think teams have figured him out a little bit. He's got, you know, from his press conference yesterday, which, you know, you've got to remember, footballers are human. You know, he's in a new city, you know, it might not be a big, massive culture shift, but, you know, it can be. You know, he's got a newborn. So, you know, you don't exactly get, you know, the same type of paternity leave, really, do you, when you're playing, you know, football? And we got to look at, you know, players sometimes do take time to adapt in Scotland. You know, we've seen it, especially in recent years. You know, players don't necessarily always hit the ground running here, and we see it more often than not now, don't we? You look at Barisic, you were talking about just a minute ago. It took him about a year to get going. He scored that free kick against St Mirren before he really started getting going. You know, the time will tell on Černý. I don't dislike him. I think that there have been times in the games where he has kind of drifted a little bit and we're not getting as much output from him. But, you know, he's had 2 big high-profile misses in 2 European matches where it would have been easier to not just get them on target, but to score. And to do what he did last night, putting it through the legs of the defender and then, you know, getting it in the bottom corner, that I'm sure that would have let out a lot of frustration and a lot of kind of built up emotion, because, you know, he's also been getting quite a bit of hatred, you know, like from social media and stuff, which is something, sadly, which happens a lot for footballers now. So hopefully he can build on this and, you know, be a nailed on right winger, because we've not really had a proper nailed on right winger in years, really, since, you know, we're going back to Candea's times. You know, it's, you know, I know McCausland kind of is in there, but he's not always nailed on, really, is he? So, you know, hopefully Černý can be that guy for us.
And Ryan, I'll come to you on Černý. Give me your whole kind of outlook on him. One of the couple of things I would say is that he gets 2 good goals yesterday. He scored another good goal a couple of weeks back, and he also put in the cross for Dessers for that last second goal in the Champions League qualifiers. But, you know, has there been enough of that?
Not so much yet. No, he's kind of scored a similar goal against Ross County. Was it Ross County, wasn't it? He got a hand and he cut in, so he is capable of opening his foot up and getting curling it in that far corner. Yeah, it's a bit one-dimensional. I just don't understand how footballers can't use both feet. It's a big peeve of mine. I just can't get my head around how they can't use 2 feet. But players need time to settle here. Fans expect too much too soon, as Rangers supporters, I think, sometimes. The jersey is heavy, as he's already seen with his kind of gestures to his supporters a few weeks ago, or even last week. But I was really happy for him after that miss during the week as well, because it could have been a real downward spiral for him after the carry on with supporters. Then he misses that chance, and he showed a real character to play to get the 2 goals he got at the weekend. There, it was a lovely bit of scouting nutmeg with this two defender and then cut on the far corner. And then it was nice to see him use his right foot because it seems as if it's just for standing. So it was good to see him get onto his right foot and bury one as well. And I think it just does the confidence of the world of good as well. He's an international player. And I think he'll be a good player for Rangers. I'm always quite patient with new signings. I think Barisic's a key example, as what Andrew said there. I think Barisic, like everybody had him dead and buried at Rangers, and then he came on and he was racking up 20 assists a season. Do you know what I mean? So you definitely need to give these guys time to settle in at our football, especially Scottish football. Scottish football's kind of he's not got a lot of space in the wings. He can take one on, but he's doubled up on all the time. But he's not got a lot of pace, so he's going to have to figure out how he's going to work his way in the Scottish leagues. But I think his numbers will be good for Rangers eventually. He's got quality in his crosses when he does get them, and he's got quality in his finishes when he can get a chance. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he'll grow in the Rangers ship.
And William, I'll come to you with the same kind of point. Just your all-round feeling of how Czerny's settled in and what you're hoping from him going forward.
I think the big thing is just more goals and more assists in terms of the positivity side of it. I think as the guys are saying, look, we are very impatient when it comes to players. We think everybody should just hit the ground running, and realistically that's not going to happen, isn't it? I mean, we're signing guys from all over the world now. And Scottish culture is quite different from a lot of other places. You see that when you go on holiday and stuff like that. And I mean, I would imagine even just like coming to this country, imagine you live in a really hot country and all of a sudden you're in Scotland and you're kind of, the cold weather, the winter times, spend like 16 hours a day in the darkness pretty much, and it must be a big culture shock for some of the players. And then obviously their families moving over here, they're moving their children over, maybe they need to put them in school. Sometimes they're living out of a hotel for a month or two, and we probably don't really think about these things when players first come in. And patience is required with players. And hopefully what Czerny did last night is going to give him a lot of confidence because he took his 2 goals really well. Obviously, everybody will talk about the first one just because of the quality of the finish, but the second one's good because he takes the player on and then shoots across the goalkeeper. But yeah, I would like to see more from him. I would like to see him bagging a few more goals because he clearly is somebody that is a good finisher. And I would just like to see a little bit more in terms of the assists, because I think these days, when you play for Rangers or Celtic, there's a kind of general feeling that you probably should be getting to double figures in goals. And that's probably what we need from him this season.
Well, we've kind of covered everything I wanted to cover this evening. Andrew, feel free to talk about anything from the game that we haven't discussed yet. Obviously, we can also mention that we're coming up to this international break. So what you're hoping the manager does during that as well?
Well, yeah, it gives a couple of weeks, hopefully, for the manager to kind of work with the team. Because we've got some big games coming up. We've got Kilmarnock, we've got Steaua Bucharest, of course, in Europa, and then we've got Aberdeen away. I know there's never a good time to play Aberdeen away or Kilmarnock away for that matter, but Aberdeen are in this kind of run at the minute, so obviously it's kind of crunch time. We can't really be dropping any further points. Now the game, yeah, a little bit later on, of course, they created a couple of chances, but never really felt like we were in any danger, really. I don't think it was the worst game of football, really. I know, we kind of, we look at the team and we look at how things have been going over the past few weeks, and there have been some really flat games, but I don't think this was as bad. Obviously, St Johnstone are in a bit of a transition themselves. They had their new manager looking on from the stands, which I think was quite ambitious from them bringing him in. But yeah, the game, I think everything's been pretty much covered from the game, being completely honest. I think the big hope now is players that are on international duty, please don't get injured, because we are just an absolutely utterly cursed team. Somebody's got a voodoo doll out there, because so far we've not been terrible this year, but there's always players out. From the press conference yesterday, it sounds like Danilo will be available after the international break. Cortez is obviously a little bit longer, and I think Yilmaz will be back then as well. So there is competition for spaces. We really need to focus on goals in the team, because Cyril Dessers, I won't slate him. He's been scoring goals for us, but we can't fully rely on him when he has a dip in form, like we spotted, in the past couple of games. I think we then do struggle. Obviously, Czerny, stepped up with a couple of goals, but we do need our wingers and our other players around for midfield to be scoring goals. We need people to be taking up Bajrami's opportunities that he's creating. Bajrami has been fantastic. He has been brilliant. Genuinely watching him, he was on par with some of them Lyon players. I got slated for that from some other fans for saying that, but he really was. He was our standout player, and he was on par with some of their players as well. And sadly, yesterday, we didn't see as much from him. Being in that kind of number 10, he still played some really good balls, but I think we can let him off for the kind of performance he put in against Lyon. I think it's been a few days since that, so that could be what it is. But we do need to start. We just need to start scoring more goals. That's something we need to start doing more of, because goal difference, you never know, could come into it again. Every year we always seem to lag behind in goal difference, which ends up being like a point or so.
Well, Andrew, thank you very much for your thoughts there, and thank you for coming on the show. William, you got some any final thoughts about the game and looking forward to the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, looking forward to a wee break. I know it's a silly thing to say, but we've already packed in a lot of football so far this season. And I think for some of the players, a little break will be a good thing ahead of a really tough schedule of games. I think when you look at the European run, we probably need to win our next home game. I think that's fair to say. But I don't think we should be writing Steaua Bucharest off, given they've won their first 2 games. So they're clearly not a poor team like some people maybe first thought they were. But look, for me, it's just the biggest thing is getting everybody back fit. And then the manager can look at the squad. And it would be nice to see Cortez back in the team, because I think he can be a real difference maker for us when he's fit. And hopefully, obviously, Danilo can get back to fitness, and then that gives the manager something else to think about. Because I think at times this season we've probably played Dessers more than what he would have liked to, but given just the complete lack of numbers up front, that he's probably played a lot of football. Whereas I'm sure the manager would have liked to have seen Danilo play a little bit more, and a little bit more at Egerman as well. So yeah, but in the main, hopefully it's a good break for the players and we come back strong, and we can go and win quite a few games next month.
Well, thank you, William. And Ryan, yourself, what's your kind of thoughts with the way things stand at the moment?
I'm happy enough with it. Billy, if you said to me at the start of the season we'd get into this international break 5 wins out of 7, I'd be very comfortable with it. So we're getting in with keeping in touch and distance. That's all we could do. Gives the manager a chance to go on the training part with the players and not have to worry about 3 games in a week and stuff. It's good maybe work on other things. Good to hopefully get some injured players back in the fold as well, and just hit the ground running when the international break ends. Like I can echo what Andrew says, is all we're missing is more goals, more aggression in the final third, and hopefully we can work on that over 2 weeks. We're doing great defensively, clean sheets all over the place. And we're just missing those 90-minute performances as well. Do you know what I mean? We're just showing in shades of the games with what we can do. So fingers crossed that's the way we come back after the break. So, but I'm absolutely comfortable with the way things are right now.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, William, for joining me this evening. Thank you for everyone that was watching. Thank you for the comments. Please remember to like and subscribe if you like to listen to podcasts. The podcast also goes out on your usual podcast apps like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all the places you get your podcast. You want to listen to it back. Anyway, all it leaves me to say is thank you for watching again. And every night is a Rangers Journal night. Good night.